Hardcore Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you. It's week 325 at BodyBags, and normally I'm your Wednesday night host, but this week I'm putting this up on Saturday. Lania was gracious enough to switch days with me so that I could have time to check out Castle of Blood from 1964. It is an attempt for me to finish off a nice little Barbara Steele arc. And of course, it is Italian month for everyone, but over at the 22 Shots, of course, it is 1 week after week after week of nothing but Italian horror. And so it's Saturday, and I got about a few hours before Georgia hits the field. So just talk about Castle of Blood for a minute here. Now this release was. I'll just get this out of the way. I think this is one of those made to order from Amazon Prime, and I guess I wasn't really thinking that through, and so the transfer is about as good as about spending $1 for a DVD out of Dollar Tree or something. It starts off really, really rough, but then it does get better for some odd reason. It just seems to, maybe you just adjust to it. I don't know what, but on this TV, actually, I had to expand the picture just so I could see it across the whole screen. So it's one of those deals. But it's just a basic kind of give us a few days to put this together and put the transfer on the DVD and some artwork and ship it off out to you. And so the worst part about it is when I put it up on the shop, I don't even have a name or anything like that. So, but anyways, this is Antonio Margheriti gets credit. Now, it's funny that I should come back to him because 2 weeks ago, I looked at his The Long Hair of Death, which is just an absolute classic of Gothic horror from '65, but this is a year before. And so Antonio will get called to come in and take over for Sergio Corbucci, who was the director, but because of scheduling conflict, he had to relieve himself from the film. And so Margheriti got a chance to come in, and I think more than anything, it seems to me he got an incredible opportunity just to kind of get some real practice down for what was going to be in 1965, just an absolute masterpiece of a film in The Long Hair of Death that he would do. Of course, Barbara Steele again, so he'll get to know her by working on this film. And I really didn't have my hands on any extras or anything like that, no commentary, so it really is sort of my analysis free of pretty much anything and everything. And for a film that just precedes Long Hair, and it is Margheriti, it's a good film. I think it really does need a new transfer and a nice Blu-ray. I'm not sure. I've looked on Amazon for a Blu-ray release, and I did not see one for it. Well, let's just get into the story real quick. It is a really an interesting story. This movie, again, does star Barbara Steele in the lead. Georges Rivière, I think he plays our Alan Foster, and who's a major character in this movie. Of course, Barbara Steele will play one Elizabeth Blackwood. And then Margrethe Robsahm will play Julia. And then, of course, Silvano Tranquilli, I think, I'm not sure. He'll play, at the very start, one Edgar Allan Poe. And so really what you got here is the opening scene, I guess, is in a tavern of sorts. And Edgar Allan Poe, who's in London for, as he says, his first and only time. He's there just sort of whatever. And Alan Foster, who's a British journalist, comes in looking for him because he's trying to catch up with him. He knows he's in town and he wants to get an interview with him. Well, there's this other guy, Sir Thomas Blackwood, who's sort of sitting off to the side, and I think he's been having a conversation with Mr. Poe. And so Alan Foster sort of comes in to this, and so the three of them pick up this conversation about the supernatural, and Edgar Allan Poe, who is just wrapping up, speaking of a story I think that he has written, gets into a rather of a sort of a debate with Alan Foster, really about the supernatural versus the material. And Alan Foster really doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Once you're dead, and that is it. And Edgar Allan Poe sort of throws out this idea that all he has written, in fact, is actually real and not fiction. And so they sort of go back and forth about it a little bit. Well, Blackwood, then he sort of injects himself in a weird way, and he sort of decides to test, I guess. But we find out he's much more, he may be actually the antagonist of the entire film, where Alan Foster really becomes the protagonist of the film. And so the two get into this sort of wager idea about Blackwood sort of debating whether or not he can handle sleeping or staying all night in his castle, which he says is haunted. Now, what Foster doesn't realize is Blackwood, who we find out somewhere in the film that his last name used to be Black Blood, really is sort of manipulating things here for other reasons. So that's why I say he may in the end be actually your antagonist. And Foster unwillingly sort of allows himself to walk into Blackwood's sort of annual trap that he sets for someone, or as we find, I think, a couple one year. And he basically cons them into staying as a bet for to see who can stay. And of course, he knows full well they're not going to get out of there. And but Alan Foster, though, he's a different guy, right? And so when he finally takes him up on his wager, he goes. They'll travel with him, and he'll get his interview on the way. And then when he's left there, it doesn't take long before Elizabeth, played by Barbara Steele, she will suddenly appear to him, but he doesn't see her as a ghost, and that's really sort of what makes this film interesting. Is he will, when he's introduced to Elizabeth and then eventually Julia, and you see those two have sort of something going on with one another in terms of, well, there's other things going on in this castle within the world of these spirits who are forced to dwell there. These are people who have been murdered, and as the night wears on, Foster is going to be forced or subjected to seeing how all of these people came to their untimely end. And so really his wits are going to be tested, his faith in the material is going to be tested, and ultimately he will fall in love with Elizabeth. And it really does, it's a slow-paced film, but it gets to this one point somewhere that it begins to really pick up, and you find out a lot along the way, and enough to tell you that Blackwood, or maybe Black Blood, this guy who has waged him from the beginning, he has absolutely no faith at all that he is going to get out of there alive. And there's almost seems to be something between Sir Thomas and actually Elizabeth's character, and sort of, I don't know, it's weird. There's just a lot of conflict, unrested conflict that is allowed to carry on, and towards, well, everyone sort of wants to see this thing end in a certain way. And I'll say the end was would really put a smile on my face, because I did not see that coming. What I saw coming was something more cliche-like, but it ended in a way where I thought to myself, "No, that was good. That was pretty good." I mean, as a film, I'll just be honest. It was one of the few times that I had a hard time working through the transfer. It really was that rough, and but the story does get you, and it does suck you in, and once you get in there, it ends up being a pretty darn good story, and I think a very nice setup for what will be the long hair of death in '65. And so it is definitely worth checking out, especially if you're a Barbara Steele fan, if you've never seen it, and see an early project that Margheriti has an opportunity to sort of come in and sort of set the stage for, I think, a movie that will be much better, much more well crafted and written, and everything about long hair is absolutely awesome. But this one has its moments, and this is one of those movies. I'm not a big remake person by any stretch, but I was thinking to myself, and I rarely do this, but I was thinking to myself watching this that, You know, if you just got the right director, who is or had been his whole life, or she infatuated with the likes of Fulci and Italian horror, and wanted to remake this film, but as a love letter to the old Italian horror and what was best about Italian horror. I'm just thinking of We Are Still Here as a love letter to Fulci. There's some real potential for a really, really insane remake with this, I think. And I'm shocked that I'm even saying this because I'm not a huge... it takes a lot to impress me with a remake. But aside from the, hey, let us get this together for you, Amazon Prime way, which I'm really, really, not impressed with that aspect. I'm not sure how that's supposed to look on your shelf, but the film was a pleasant surprise, and I look forward to upgrading a better transfer of this and actually getting to see it in the same way that I got to see Long Hair of Death and even Black Sunday, both on Blu-ray. Those picture qualities are insane. This was tough. This was definitely tough. But if you're into Gothic horror and you're into Italian horror and movies that you've just never seen before for whatever reason, I did not double check this, and I apologize for that, but I think this is Amazon Prime, like you can watch it, streaming it. And so I don't know what the quality of that, I would imagine it's the same as on the DVD. But I think I'm gonna just wrap it up here, and this will sort of bring an end to my little tipping of the hat to November being Italian month. And so 3 from Barbara Steele, and I really did enjoy these movies. And I actually got another Barbara Steele film on my shelf. If you remember Silent Scream, she's in that too. So, but anyways, it is Saturday, and so this is a surprise upload for me on a Saturday. But I got some Georgia football coming here shortly, and very, very just ready to get that going. And but as always, when we end these things, go Bills, and remember next week is theme week at BodyBags.